Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to grab a couple books for guidance here today. I was guided to go into my textbooks for my degree. And what I want to share with you is something called the metaphysical science confrontation technique. And for me, it was really interesting because I have said most of my life, I talked about how I didn't like conflict and I avoided conflict. And when I read confrontation, I immediately went into resistance, just with the word. So I spent some time on, what the energy behind confrontation meant for me and what results I had felt and the evidence of what confrontation meant for me. And uh, it really it's gone back, well, years and lifetimes. So I encourage those of you either here right now or listening later on, if that word triggers you or tweaks you, just to spend some time again on, you can look up the definition of confrontation and tap into and lean into why that might be a word that's a challenge for you. And either A, of course, find a different word or do the work around the resistance of the word confrontation. It eased up for me as I started to go through this particular chapter and started to do the work on the confrontation technique. And so what they talk about here is confrontation is a metaphysical science technique that will overcome a negative energy in your mind, not in another lifetime, but right now. If you'll use it daily until all of the negative energy of weakness has been eliminated on all levels of your mind. Excuse me. And I also had a resistance to the word weakness. It was really interesting for me how this chapter triggered me, right? And this is early on in the study. And so I looked at for me, what weakness meant at that time. And there was, of course, judgment around the word for me that had a meaning around it. And then I started thinking about it from a physical perspective, like, before you use any muscles, like your muscles can atrophy and become weakened if you don't use them. Our mind can become atrophied if we don't use them. And so the weakness that they're talking about in this particular instance is just if we're used to having a negative energy and we're not used to confronting the negative energy, then we become to a weakened state, meaning the negative energy is taken over. So it's not a judgment of self as I really thought at first, but rather an assessment, a target, a ways and means to communicate how to show up differently. So confrontation is a metaphysical science technique that will overcome a negative energy in your mind. Again, not in this lifetime, but pardon me, not in another lifetime, but in this lifetime. So a positive mental attitude about the confrontation needs to contain the following ingredients. And I love the verbiage of this because they talk about it as if it's a recipe, right? Like, here's the ingredients of a positive mental state. Number one, you must actually desire to change. Now, I immediately, when I think of change, I go into transformation. So for me, I've made the connection that the change is first, and then, but the ultimate goal, again, it's my own personal point of view, is transformation. For me, change feels temporary. Transformation feels permanently. But if change resonates with you, then keep that word. You must truly want to succeed. Now, remember, succeed is your definition of success, not anyone's definition of success, and to be happy. And then you must honestly believe that no temporal energy of your mind, so like your brain power, your brain pan, your intellect, can stand up to the eternal energy of, now they use the word God power, right? So use whatever word that you want here. So so you must honestly believe that no temporal energy of your mind can stand up to the eternal energy of the God power at the center of your mind. Okay. So what I think is most important too, I'm going to share with you and be guide to share with you, is they're using words that you intellectually can accept and grasp. So not that we intellectually couldn't grasp other maybe theories, but what the textbook does really well is it really gets to the point, and it speaks in a language where I found that my intellect, my beliefs, right, my paradigms had less resistance to what they were saying. So it's easier then to accept the energy of the words. So confrontation is this metaphysical science that will overcome this negative energy. Now the weakness energy, so meaning for me, and the weakness energy is our thought patterns, like our intellect, our limiting beliefs, right? Our paradigms, occupying our mind is temporary. It will pass by eventually, but by yielding yourself to the all-powerful evolutionary presence of the God power in your mind, and through confrontation, you'll cause that evolution to take place now. So I thought this is really interesting because they're saying eventually, right, the pain that you're in will pass. You know, you can, with time, it will pass. However, we have a choice. We can do the work to work on what's causing the pain. So we'll get to the root cause of the pain. And one of the ways to get to the root cause of the pain is what they're suggesting is this confrontation technique. So we have here, they give us like an actual list. So when we decide to turn towards our higher power, here's the outcomes: self-mastery, self-control, self-confidence, self-assurance, self-growth, self-awareness, self-progress, self-success. Don't you love that? Self-success, right? Self-renewal and self-choice. I felt, when I read that the first time, I felt so empowered because it really, if you feel into that, if you hear the vibration of the words, you really hear what the words, and you feel the words, you will have a sense of how powerful you are at your core. And I'll say how powerful you can be, because at some level we're resisting some of that, right? So self-mastery, self-control, self-confidence, self-assurance, self-growth, self-awareness, self-progress, self-success, self-renewal, self-choice. So which parts of those, look at little kitty, which parts of those do you resist? So negative, so when we're yielding to our brain pan, our thought patterns, there's self-regression, self-destruction, self-indulgence, self-doubt, self-confusion. Isn't that beautiful? So when we're confused, it's self-confusion. Self-degrading, self-fear, self-failure, self-defeat, and self-retarding. And again, such a powerful, when we own all of this, when we can completely accept our responsibility, we can be, so when we say I have fear, we can replace that verbiage with I have self-fear. And then we know how powerful the words I have or I am. And so then we can work on replacing even the word fear. I mean, it's important to acknowledge it. So it's not about like, closing your la la la. It's not about that, but going, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm trying to own the fear. It's self-fear. So I can be in awareness, it's self-fear. But what else is possible? So we must decide on the positive, progressive, self-mastering choices to allow our higher power to eliminate whatever weaknesses are holding back your happiness and fulfillment. So over the weekend, I was sharing with you kind of some of what was happening. And yesterday I talked to you a bit about it. And I talked about how it's what we want to stop focusing on is solving the problem. But what we're maybe looking for is the clarity. This is another way of being in awareness, of allowing your higher power to eliminate whatever weaknesses are holding back your happiness and fulfillment. This is about surrendering. I, Ranchelle, the personality, right? That person, the ego, the id, the I, the personality in me, right? I cannot find out what's holding me back from happiness and fulfillment, or I would have. So this is when we surrender into our higher power. So I ask my higher power, right? My guides, my angels, God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, Goddess, divine intelligence, spirit, whatever word works for you. This is when you lean into and surrender your ego, your id, your I, and realize that you need to lean into this higher power to help you create and manifest, to even find the clarity about what's holding you back versus your personality. Because every time you ask your personality, you are going to have the following answer: I don't know. That's what the confusion is. I don't know. Well, of course you don't know, because you're asking your ego, your id, your I. So you don't know, because if you did know, you're resourceful and intelligent and amazing, so you would change it. So leaning into our higher power, our God mind in this particular case. So if you use this metaphysical technique called of direct confrontation, you will eliminate any weakness that is holding back the God-given success power in your mind. Right? So how is this accomplished? The God power of your own mind, is infinitely greater than the temporal weakness energy in your mind. So our God power, our higher power, is infinitely greater than our intellect, than our personality, right? Our ego, our id. And to remind us that weaknesses are unevolved habit patterns of mental energy. So we can eliminate the negative feelings, emotions about weakness by understanding that a weakness is an unevolved habit pattern of mental energy. And it's within the subconscious mind that surface to one's conscious mental activity in an attempt to control one's mind and system. So these are unevolved habit patterns of mental energy that are trying to attempt to control your mind and nervous system. It's not an enemy. It's part of being a human being, or on the journey to become limitless or unlimited. That was kind of what we signed up for, personal point of view. So our higher power, or God power, is the unlimited healing, transforming, eternally present, primal energy power that's centered in the mind. It has all power to directly confront and eliminate the hold of negative weakness energies emerging from one's subconscious. So I'm going to say that again because it's really powerful. Our higher power, God power again, whatever word, is the unlimited healing, transforming, eternally present primal energy power centered in the mind. Now you could say centered in the mind, centered in your heart, centered in your body. If you don't like the word mind, it's okay. Find a word that you resonate with. It has all power to directly confront and eliminate the hold of negative weakness energies. When weakness energies enters your mind, so whenever you don't feel good, right, call within to the universal God center of your mind that contains the God power present. And you can actually, he says, make a direct God power confrontation affirmation, which is what we're going to talk about today. So the affirmation is the higher power, whatever word you want, within me is greater than the power causing me to and then this one, the example they use is overeat. I yield my body and mind to the higher power within me that brings peace to my mind and body. So whenever you feel a negative energy trying to take you over, go into direct confrontation with it in your mind by saying aloud the following and that affirmation. So if you just want to keep track of the time, if you go back and listen, that was at 8:17 Mountain Standard Time where I gave that. So then you can go and grab that. So whatever problem you're having, you can go into direct confrontation. As you use the confrontation affirmation, think and try to feel the greater power of your higher mind taking over your intellect, like your mind. So as you use this confrontation. Now, when I said the word taking over, how many of you had a lurch of like fear around that, or something like it was like I felt this like taking over? No way. So again, just look at the words and how those words are affecting you. Find the definition. This is like Webster's dictionary. It's so great that we actually have it online, and find a different word if that word bothers you. You also have the opportunity to lean into and explore why that word, you would have such a reaction to that word taking over. Right. And again, there's no judgment in that, just being in awareness. Because if you're using an affirmation and that word doesn't resonate with you, that's why you need to find it, like find a different word that resonates with you so that the affirmation can work. So you want to feel this power within you until you no longer sense any influence whatsoever from the weakness energy of your mind. And then when this occurs, you give thanks. Right? So you want to have the gratitude. Excuse me. So another example, they said, suppose you have to look for a new job, but have been putting it off due to interview jitters, or because the weakness energy in your mind has been challenging your confidence or qualifications. So the affirmation example is, the God power within me is greater than any feeling of self-doubt within me. Therefore, I yield my mind and body to the higher power within. The higher power within me gives me peace and power to get up, go out, travel to, and have this interview. So you're directly confronting what you're afraid of, the weakness in your mind. So think about how you could use this in an attempt to build your business. This is where radical honesty. So are you avoiding abandonment, rejection? Are you avoiding, marketing? Are you avoiding sales? Are you avoiding having conversation? What are you avoiding in building your business? And then you would do this direct confrontation method, right? So an example could be, the higher power within me is greater than any feeling of self-doubt within me. Therefore, I yield my mind and body to the higher power within. The higher power within me gives me the peace and the power to, and then it would be something to do with marketing, right? To make myself visible, to do a Facebook Live, to put an offer out, whatever it is that you're in resistance of. And then, of course, you give thanks. So you say that over and over again until the heaviness, right? When I'm in resistance, like when I'm avoiding something, when I'm procrastinating, or I'm in self-sabotage, it will feel heavy. And so I can, if I say these affirmations, I'll feel a lightness, something within me. I'll yawn often or burp. That's the other thing that happens with me, right? Or sometimes I'll sit up, like I'll find my posture changing, right? So vital points. Always begin your confrontation affirmation. Isn't that crazy how they put those two words together? Confrontation, affirmation. I mean, I love it. So you always begin your confrontation affirmation with the following words: the God power within me, or the higher power within me, is greater than. And continue repeating this and attempt to feel the higher power, right, taking over. And then give thanks for self-mastery. Now, again, can't really mess this up, right? So play around with it. You'll feel, I believe that you'll feel it either working or not. And if it's not working, then that doesn't mean you're necessarily doing anything wrong, but you might need to make an adjustment, right? And so then you can come back, re-listen to this. This is 8:23, so I think I talked about that at 8:22 my time. Again, make note of that. So if you need to go into the audio, you can just strictly go to the affirmation itself and feel it. Really, really feel it. Right. And so that's so very important. Oh, hang on, there's just a question. So yeah, the confrontation affirmation. So thank you, Sherry. So Sherry's question is: define confrontation affirmation further. And so this is a technique that's in my metaphysical textbook. And it's really about confronting the fear. Like this is my perception of confronting the fear head on, or confronting what they refer to as the weakness, because it doesn't have to be fear. Confronting the weakness head on. So being so radically honest with yourself about what the energy is, what your thoughts are within the energy. So they define weakness as unevolved, habit patterns of mental energy within our subconscious mind, right? That surfaces to our conscious mental activity in attempt to control our mind and nervous system. So I would say that could be our Groundhog Days, that could be our fears, our doubts, our worries, and we need to can confront them with this particular affirmation. So hopefully that makes more sense. Here's the actual definition. Confrontation is a metaphysical science technique that will overcome a negative energy in your mind, not in another lifetime, but right now, if you use it daily until all the negative energy of weakness has been eliminated on all levels of your mind. And so I think what's most important is this is a daily practice. I mean, you certainly can just use it when you're having worry, doubt, or fear, are a lower energy, a lower vibe energy, or you can use it as a daily practice. And for me, when I started it, I used it as a daily practice because I was aware of my Groundhog Days, right? And my self-sabotage habits and my procrastination. And I can tell you, when I stopped using it, I slipped back into some of those unevolved patterns, right? So, part of what I've been directed to do is like, oh yeah, right, I stopped doing this when, and so go back to, because this can be used, for example, in health. So it can be used in my health, it can be used in wealth, it can be used in business, it can be used in relationships, body, et cetera, et cetera. It can be used in in all areas of our life, right? And it really ties into what we've been talking about in the You Too Can Be Prosperous by Robert Russell, right? In this book, so we talk about, I talked about this last time, but I'll just repeat this. Every condition, every experience of life is the result of a mental attitude. So we could say mental thoughts, right? We can only do what we think we can do. We can only be what we think we can be. We can only have what we think we can have. What we do, what we are, what we have, all depend upon what we think. So this is the intellect, right? So if we believe it, then it will, of course, the outcome will be there. So this is why we need to confront the weakness, right? So if I, in weightlifting, if I wanted to get stronger in weightlifting, right, what I focused on was being stronger, not being less weak. Does that make sense? I focused on getting stronger, not on being less weaker. Poor English, but I think that's the point, right? I lifted weights to become stronger. And this is the same thing. What do we need to do to correct our correct our attitude, to correct our thinking, to correct our behavior? And again, correct meaning not right or wrong, but there is a correct way for us to think in the essence, the sense of tapping into our higher power. Karen has a great comment, which is, it's encouraging us to step up and confront or demand the change versus a weaker ask or prayer. 100%. 100%. Even the words like I command or I demand, those are often in the Law of Attraction series, anything, right, where you can command or demand. And, I had a really hard time with the word demand. Anybody else? Right. And have that. And for me, it was because for most of my life, my adult life, having men tell me, oh, you're so demanding, and me taking that as bad. And now if someone says to me, man or woman, you're so demanding, I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm clear. This is true. It probably does feel like I'm demanding you, or it probably does feel like I'm commanding you, because I'm clear. I'm clear of what I want. I'm clear of my desires. I'm clear of who I am. And I'm clear of how powerful I am. And so it probably would feel to someone who has not done the personal development or spiritual development work that I've done, that I am commanding, or I am being demanding, and being okay. Karen has, I teach one of my modalities to respectfully demand. Oh, that feels better. I respectfully demand from the angels. Absolutely. I commanded the other day to be healthy. And it started out of frustration. Then after then I settled into it. And it's like, okay, right, I have much work to do, much things that I want to, right, share with the world. And having weakness of muscles and weakness in my health, I just won't accept that. I won't accept that. So, all right, I'm just going to pause here for a moment. Move a little bit of that energy. Does anybody else have anything else that they'd like to share? I'll just stop the recording.